I was guiding a group through a historic forge in Sheffield alongside a master cutlery craftsman demonstrating hand-folded high-carbon steel. An American in a neon track jacket snorted loudly. In Texas, my buddy uses a hydraulic press and a blowtorch. You double output if you drop those ancient hammers. The blacksmith smiled thinly and replied, "Yes, sir, but then we'd make garage tools, not Sheffield steel." At a historic tea house in Kyoto, I was carefully executing the Chado ritual, measuring powdered matcha for our guests. A tourist from California tapped the table and interrupted. "You're scooping way too slow. You need oat milk and vanilla syrup. Plain green tea powder just tastes like grass. I buy matcha shakes in LA, so I know how this is prepared." While serving on a traditional wooden boat in Cornwall, our skipper was explaining how to read coastal tides without electronics. An American wearing brand new sailing gear stepped up. "You're playing a dangerous game. On Lake Michigan, we rely strictly on dual GPS plotters. Relying on currents is outdated." Our 70-year-old skipper quietly muttered, "Aye, son, but Lake Michigan doesn't have a 20-foot tide trying to swallow you whole." What makes these moments so fascinating is the complete absence of intellectual curiosity. Instead of entering a new culture with open eyes, these individuals view the entire world through the narrow straw of their local habits. They mistake regional convenience for universal truth, assuming that if something is done differently back home, the rest of the planet must be wrong. I was working at a cured ham cellar in Parma, where our master artisan explained the 2-year curing process using only sea salt and mountain air. An American tourist pulled out his phone and frowned deeply. In the States, commercial facilities use chemical chambers to cure pork in 48 hours. Letting raw meat hang in open air for 2 years is insane. You need to modernize your sanitation. During a tour through a copper still distillery in the Scottish Highlands, our head distiller highlighted the subtle peat smoke notes in a 25-year-old single malt. A tourist in a sports cap laughed. "You're overcomplicating this. Whiskey is supposed to be mixed with ice-cold cola or taken as a shot. All those fancy words about oak barrels are just marketing nonsense to charge extra money." I was managing a carpet workshop in Istanbul, showing guests how local weavers tie thousands of knots by hand to create intricate silk patterns. A tourist from Florida leaned over the loom and shook his head. A modern synthetic rug machine in Atlanta can stamp out 1,000 of these in 20 minutes using polyester yarn. You people are wasting months of manual labor. At a historic plaza in Seville, 2 professional flamenco dancers were executing a fiery performance accompanied by acoustic guitar. An American woman stood up and clapped her hands to stop the music. "Stop, your rhythm is totally off. I've taken ballroom dance classes in Ohio, and your posture is too tense. Flamenco follows precise steps, not this wild stomping." Notice the common thread here, a total inability to distinguish between mass production and master craftsmanship. To these individuals, speed and convenience are the only true metrics of value. If a process takes time, passion, or centuries of refined culture, their immediate instinct is not to admire it, but to try and fix it with a cheap, mass-market solution. While working at a historic timber frame restoration site in Bavaria, our master carpenter demonstrated ancient mortise joints built entirely without metal nails. An American tourist stepped up and smirked. "If you don't secure those main beams with heavy-duty galvanized steel brackets and 3-inch deck screws, this whole building will collapse in a storm. Wood joints alone can't hold real weight." I was guiding a walking tour through a historic terraced vineyard in Portugal, explaining how grapes are picked entirely by hand due to the steep rocky slopes. An American tourist raised his hand to interrupt. "This looks like a nightmare for labor costs. In California, we use mechanical harvesters. You guys should just bulldoze these stone terraces flat and bring in heavy machinery." During a tour of a traditional perfume atelier in France, our chief nose explained how natural jasmine blossoms are gathered at dawn to preserve their delicate oils. A tourist from Nevada loudly cleared her throat. Synthetic fragrance compounds engineered in a laboratory are way more consistent and cheaper. Nobody can tell the difference between real flowers and chemical jasmine anyway. You're just selling a story. At a historic baker's shop in Copenhagen, our master baker explained the slow sourdough fermentation process that gives traditional Danish rye bread its distinctive flavor. An American woman watched him shape the loaves and sighed dramatically. "Why aren't you adding commercial yeast?" In America, our bakeries rise and bake a loaf in under an hour. Waiting 2 full days is just poor time management. There is a wonderful irony in how these self-proclaimed experts attempt to re-educate locals on their own heritage. It highlights a fascinating psychological defense mechanism. When confronted with deep cultural depth that someone does not understand, it is far easier to declare the culture wrong than to admit one's own ignorance. I was working as an educator at a whaling museum in Nantucket, standing beside an authentic 19th century harpoon boat. An American tourist stepped forward. "Actually, that's historically inaccurate. I've watched 6 seasons of Ocean Hunters, and those vessels always had mounted iron winch systems on the stern. You must have removed the original ironworks to make the boat look more primitive for tourists." While guiding a group through an ancient olive grove in Crete, our host explained how some trees have produced oil for over 2,000 years. An American visitor looked at the twisted trunks and scoffed. "These trees look diseased." In California, we trim olive orchards into uniform hedgerows for automated picking. You need to cut back all these old trunks. You're letting ancient trees choke your efficiency. I was serving at an authentic tapas bar in San Sebastian, Spain, presenting a platter of high-grade acorn-fed Iberian ham to an American couple. The husband took one look at the delicate slices of cured fat and waved his hand in disgust. "Take this back, it's raw and covered in grease." In Chicago, ham is cooked solid and served with a sweet honey glaze. At a pottery studio in Kyoto, a master ceramicist demonstrated kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with real gold lacquer to highlight its history. An American tourist snickered. "Why waste expensive gold powder on broken plates? Back home, if a dish cracks, we throw it in the trash and buy a new set for $20. Or at least use clear superglue. Spending hours gluing broken trash makes zero financial sense." These encounters reveal a hilarious clash between the world of mass consumerism and the world of preserved heritage. To a mind raised on instant gratification and standardized products, the concept of imperfection, patience, or reverence for history feels almost like a personal insult. I was giving a tour of a historic watermill in rural Wales, explaining how the wooden wheel uses natural river flow to grind heirloom wheat flour. An American engineer stepped forward, tapping his pen. "Your energy efficiency here is absolute garbage. If you retrofitted this wheel with an electric motor and a diesel generator backup, you could triple your hourly flour production regardless of river levels." While working at an authentic cheese cave in Roquefort, France, our guide explained how natural blue mold develops in underground limestone caves over several months. An American tourist made a disgusted face. "That is utterly unsanitary." In America, moldy food is thrown into the garbage disposal. You shouldn't be selling spoiled, infected cheese. You need to spray these limestone caves with bleach and seal the walls. During a tour of an ancient Roman amphitheater in Verona, our historian explained the incredible acoustic engineering that allowed voices to carry without modern amplification. An American tourist carrying a large wireless speaker interrupted her mid-sentence. "The acoustics here are terrible compared to a modern stadium setup. If the Romans actually knew what they were doing, they would have installed overhead speaker arrays and sound-dampening foam panels." I was working at a traditional wood-fired sauna complex in Finland, explaining the ancient ritual of relaxing in the steam and taking a cool plunge in the lake. An American tourist shook his head. "This whole setup is completely dangerous and unhealthy. In California, saunas are strictly kept at controlled temperatures with dry electric heaters. Steam creates bacteria, and jumping into a cold lake gives you instant hypothermia." Notice how the urge to instruct others often comes with a bizarre sense of moral superiority. The tourist does not merely offer an opinion, they frame it as a public service, convinced they are rescuing the locals from their own backwardness. While working as an archaeologist at a dig site near Hadrian's Wall in northern England, I was carefully dusting off a piece of ancient Roman pottery. An American tourist leaned over the safety rope and pointed aggressively at the trench. You're using the wrong tools. My brother runs an excavation company in Ohio, and they use heavy mechanical backhoes to clear dirt. You'd finish this whole site in a weekend with proper equipment. At a historic glass-blowing studio in Venice, Italy, a master artisan was shaping a delicate vase using techniques unchanged since the Renaissance. An American visitor watched for a moment, then turned to his family with a loud sigh. This is completely unnecessary manual labor. In the States, industrial factories use automated glass injection molds to produce thousands of identical glass bottles every hour. This guy is sweating just to make one crooked vase. I was guiding a boat tour along the canals of Bruges, Belgium, pointing out the preserved 15th-century brick architecture reflected in the water. An American tourist wearing a baseball cap leaned over with a serious expression. Your city planning department is doing a terrible job here. These canals are taking up prime real estate. If you filled in these waterways with concrete, you could turn them into a 6-lane highway system. During a traditional tea ceremony in Hangzhou, China, our host demonstrated how different water temperatures unlock complex flavors in green tea. An American tourist pulled a plastic bottle of soda from her bag and shook her head. You guys are making tea way too complicated. Back home, we just toss a commercial tea bag into boiling microwave water for 30 seconds and add 3 spoonfuls of white sugar. It takes zero effort. It is remarkable how deep cultural traditions, built over centuries of trial, error, and artistic passion, can be dismissed in a single breath by someone whose main qualification is having seen something different on television. I was working at a historic distillery in Ireland, explaining how our copper pot stills create the smooth, triple-distilled character of Irish whiskey. An American tourist interrupted our guide with a smirk. You guys have got the whole process backwards. In Kentucky, we use continuous column stills made of stainless steel. It runs non-stop and produces spirit 10 times faster than these slow copper pots. Primitive technology is holding you back. While guiding a mountain tour through the Swiss Alps, I explained how traditional alpine farmers use hand-carved wooden bells to track their grazing cattle across steep mountain pastures. An American hiker in high-tech gear stepped forward and laughed. That is so outdated. Why don't you attach solar-powered GPS tracking collars with cellular microchips to every cow? You could track them all on a smartphone app instead of walking around listening for metal bells. At an authentic butcher shop in Munich, Germany, our master butcher explained the traditional preparation of Bavarian Weisswurst, emphasizing that it must be made fresh daily without artificial preservatives. An American tourist examined the display case with suspicion. Why aren't these sausages vacuum-packed with chemical preservatives like we do in America? Without preservatives, these will spoil in a few days. That's just bad manufacturing. You should add synthetic preservatives. I was working at a historic weaving mill in the Scottish borders, showing visitors how pure virgin wool is spun into traditional tartan fabrics using historic looms. An American woman stepped up, touched the wool, and made a face. This material feels way too heavy and scratchy. In America, we use soft polyester blends and synthetic fleece for all our outdoor clothing. It's much lighter, cheaper, and doesn't require sheep farming. In the end, these hilarious encounters serve as a gentle reminder of why we travel in the first place. True travel is not about finding comfortable echoes of our own backyards across the ocean, it is about stepping back, staying quiet, and letting the world teach us something new. The next time you find yourself before an ancient craft, leave the expert advice at home and simply enjoy the moment.